Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the Jason Kendall podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. So before we get started, I just want to let you guys know I do have hats available, either Hotshot Haulers or my personal brand Kendall Enterprise hats, still available, shipped for $30 pretty much anywhere in North America. I'll leave my email down in the description below, and you guys can shoot me an email and let me know if you want one. Do appreciate the support. So let's get into it. So this is the second episode of the podcast, and we're going to do things a little different here. I've been kind of slacking, been kind of putting this off because I didn't know which direction I really wanted to take this channel and the podcast itself. So I've decided that it's going to be, we're going to go laid back. That's me. That's how I operate. I run a very strict business, and I don't really take any crap. But when it comes to anything other than that, I'm very laid back. Wife says I have a temper and I'm very impatient, but what does she know? She still married me. But let's get into it. So today we're going to kind of talk, and I was thinking about this on a recent trip of mine. And if you guys don't know, I am a business owner, and I've been in business for about 2 years now working for myself, and it's been the best thing I've ever done. So, I was thinking about this on a trip the other day, and I came across a few pictures from high school, and it brought back a lot of memories of, my high school days. Now, everybody says that high school was the best time of their life, and they wish they could go back, but my story was a little different. I did have a great part of high school. And we'll go through the whole story, which leads to kind of the title of today's video, which is going to be, you don't always have to be the best. And sometimes being the best is not always, the greatest outcome for you. And I'll give you some examples of that throughout this podcast. So stay tuned. We're going to crack a beverage here, and we're just going to get into it then. Okay, so let's start from the beginning, but we're going to make the beginning quick. So growing up, I was always a very good athlete. From the time I was probably 5-6 years old up until I went to high school, I was usually the best player on my team, and I worked very hard to do that. I also had a great amount of help from my father, who was always my coach from the time I could play sports until I went to high school. The big influence in my life and always pushed me to be the best in life no matter what it was doing. So getting up to high school, I was always a small kid, and it didn't really affect me much through the middle school years because I could always make up with it with my speed or my intensity. And when we got to high school is kind of when I wasn't always the best sports player at that point because everybody had passed me in weight, size, speed, and I was kind of a late bloomer. I went into, I think, my high school freshman year at about 90 pounds or so. I had I can't even begin to explain it because when I was in middle school, I had a bunch of tests done. I ended up in Johns Hopkins for a while doing tests because my body just wasn't growing as it should, and some chemical imbalance was promoting that and caused me to have a bunch of tests done. The test made me very sick. I had to stay in Johns Hopkins for a few days that I can remember. I don't remember much from that place because of all the stuff they were giving me. I was kind of in and out of it. And it's just a bad time in life. So we'll jump to high school then. So as a freshman, I was, I had to try out for the team. I obviously tried out and made the team. Now in freshman year, I want to say I started on, I don't know. I don't remember. See, this is where it gets blurry because I don't remember. I think I started on defense my freshman, sophomore, and my senior year. I started on defense. I didn't play very much offense, which is a different story, but anyways, this is not what this is about. So I was kind of I just had to fight. I had to fight and fight and fight to have that starting spot and get playing time, which I wasn't used to. I was used to just always being the best. So I was just undersized, and the being able to make it up for it with speed and intensity was, everybody else was elevated just a little above me. So sports were the only thing I knew at that point. I thought maybe I would go to college and play basketball, which was my favorite sport, and that just slowly started to become, just a hope and a dream, because it started slipping away from me. So as I started to progress through high school, I really started to realize that maybe sports weren't going to be my life. And I still had a lot of people in my school that I was envious of, because they were great athletes and they were getting scholarships to college, and it looked like they had everything made. So, in my junior year, I got my license and everything, and still playing sports. But I decided I wanted to go get a job. I wanted my own money. So I ended up getting a job at Circuit City, which, if you guys know, that was an electronics store before they shut down. And actually, that was my senior year. I got a job at Circuit City, and selling electronics, because I was interested in cell phones, Xbox, TV. I was kind of into that kind of realm of technology and electronics, and I was playing a lot of video games, so it just interested me. So I figured, I could sell the stuff. Now, 3 days into my job, I was still a senior in high school playing football, and I actually broke my arm in the state playoff game. Third play of the game, broke my arm in half. So I actually had a cast to my shoulder, and there was no way I was going to be able to work, because I couldn't drive back and forth to work. And the only reason I got a job was to have money for my car, and I didn't really need that. So, why have a job? So moving on, I got another job at a mail distribution place, which was just a job for me to hit on girls and see what kind of prime snatch was coming in and out, and didn't really take the job seriously at first. And then I started to connect with some of the managers and some of the employees, and I actually ended up starting to actually work hard, which led me into getting a mini supervisor position, I guess you could say. I won't bore you with that, but I was kind of higher on the pay scale, and I did actually less work, which is great. And then after that, I found a job opportunity actually as a mechanic. We built handicap mobility vans, the wheelchair lifts to get in and out of buses and vans. That's what we did. Learned a lot there. Got to travel some, got my certifications, and I was loving it. I was making $12 an hour or so at this point. Now, all my friends that were athletes were all off at college at this point, and they were all living life. I mean, I had friends that were playing D1 baseball, D1 football. I had a few D1 wrestlers, and I was still jealous and envious of the the life they had. So I kept working my mechanic job. I kept going, and when I turned 21, I got the job opportunity. Came up as a service advisor at a dealership. Knew a lot about cars. Didn't know so much about the brands I'd be representing if I got the job, but I knew I had the base knowledge and mechanical ability to talk somebody through what happened to their car, what broke, why it needs to be replaced. So I went and applied for the job, got the job on my 21st birthday, and I spent 7 whole years at that job. So I started out at that job. I was probably making about $40,000 a year, and for me, $40,000 a year was a lot of money. It was more than I'd ever made, and I really started to love my job and work hard and connect with customers and get some real good customers that would trust me to work and fix their vehicle properly, and I loved it. Now, this is where it starts to get ironic, and when I say you don't always have to be the best, here's what happens. So 4 years later, all these guys I knew that were in college, it was time to graduate. And, they had been on this free ride, full scholarship, mommy and daddy money, paying for everything through school, and it's time to graduate. So at that point, what do? Either get professional or you get a real job. And, I'm not knocking or hating on anybody, but I'm very thankful for, as tough as I had it through high school, not always being the best. And then after, as I progressed in life, not always being, the best or having the best opportunities, but making everything work. So they were, those guys were getting ready to graduate, and it was go professional and make a lot of money or get a real job. And unfortunately, a lot of these guys had to get a real job and have never worked a job in their life. And they're 22, 23, 24 years old, and you've never worked a regular job. So, going to college for, you go D1, you go to college to play sports. You don't go to college to get an education. Do you even go to class? Who knows? So a lot of these guys got out and, they're lost in the world. And it feels so good going back to my hometown and realizing that, I'm glad I wasn't the best athlete, because I was, given this opportunity to work at a car dealership, making $40,000 a year. 7 years later, I'm making $80-ish thousand a year. And these guys are working, part-time coaching jobs at maybe making 30 grand a year. So that's when it all, started to play into my court, because I had that 5, 6, 7 years of experience on top of all these guys, and I'm that much farther ahead in life. And go back to, a small hometown, and you're pulling into, the only gas station in town to get diesel fuel in your company truck. And, I've got people coming up to me that, see my last name. If you know my last name and you go into my town, everybody knows my father. So in turn, everybody end up knowing me. And I have people coming up to me like, man, I see what you're doing out there. You're doing great. You're killing it. I wish, my son had a work ethic like you. He's still living at home. He's 24. He's 25 years old. And he doesn't really know what he wants to do in life. He's working part-time, working retail, and pretty much just partying with his friends. And, that feels really good because of, how far and low I was in high school, which may be another podcast about, my confidence and my, mental health and everything. Even now isn't the best, but it's improved with success. So when people tell you that money doesn't buy happiness, when you're making the money for yourself and you see it, growing and growing and growing, and you're the one out there grinding every single day to get to that point, it does make happiness. And not in all aspects of life, but, for me, the only thing I really fear in life is being broke, and that's why I work so hard. So let's take a quick break here. We got to take just a little break. We can use the restroom here, maybe drink a beer or so, and we'll get back to it. All right, so here's what I'm trying to say, is you don't always have to be the best at what you do, but it's all about how you work harder to become better at what you want to do. If I would have tried harder and worked harder in the gym to be better at sports, maybe I would have been a better athlete. But, for me, once I got that taste of money, is that there was nothing stopping me from becoming, I don't want to say a millionaire, because I want to be there one day. But once you get that taste of 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000, 20,000, once you see like those kind of numbers in your bank account, there's no stopping you from there. And the people who are content at being, rolling around with $100, $200, $500 in their checking account, and that's all they got, that's the people you don't want to be around. So I'm thankful for not being, the gifted athlete, because 99% of those people I know that were gifted athletes throughout middle school, high school, and college are living paycheck to paycheck because they can't find a job, and they don't have any skills other than sports. Yeah, maybe you can be a coach, but look at the way the world is right now with COVID-19. There's no sports. Yeah, you might be coaching a college, baseball team, but we're not playing live. You may be a coach, or you may be, just say you're a, I don't know, linebacker coach for an NFL team. You might be making the same amount of money that somebody could be making, working retail. I don't know. It's just something to think about. I mean, I'm all about hard work, and the more work you put in, the better you'll be off in life. But you have to choose the right path and stop living in a fantasy land. So that's how I feel. That's kind of my story about how I work through not always being the best in life and just being okay, and then in turn turning out better than what the best people in life were. So I hope you guys can take something from this. I hope you guys are still listening. If you're still listening, drop a comment below saying a White Claw, because that's what I'm drinking right now. And we'll see you guys on the next one. I appreciate it. We're going to bring some guests on here once this whole COVID-19 thing slows down and we can bring people. We're going to have a little studio in the basement, my office of the house, and we'll get people live, and we'll go from there. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Don't forget, if you want a hat, drop a email to the link in the description. We'll see you guys then.